There are three kinds of great anime. There are anime that are relics of their time and fade into obscurity as time goes on. And there are anime that age like fine wine, imaginative and true, no matter when they are seen. And then there are anime that only become more relevant as time goes on, as if they were predicting the future. Psych-Pass is one of those anime because it isn't about the future. It's about us. It's about what technology can tell us about what it means to be an individual. And for some reason, more literary references than is appropriate for a single anime. Welcome to Weebgel. I, King of Weeaboos and professional English degree holder, will be your host for tonight's menu of Shakespeare, Orwell, and basically every single book Gen Urobuchi has ever read in his entire life. Let's start by taking a look at some of the contradictions in the world of Psych-Pass. Take a look at this. This 3-second shot is the first thing we see of the city. It shows us a bit in the opening fight, but the actual city, how it lives and breathes, this is the first thing we see. It's a brilliant, towering metropolis built over water, a marvel of engineering. Just looking at this screams, "Welcome to the future, bitch!" But look closer. What's this? Derelict buildings completely overgrown with plants and collapsing into the water. Why show us this? Tokyo is a sprawling, futuristic city filled with towering skyscrapers and neon lights. But instead, Psych-Pass chooses to show us this part, these rusted, overgrown buildings crumbling into the sea. It's showing us nature, it's showing us disorder. It's showing us that for however much this city dominates the environment, it isn't immune to nature, it's merely fighting a losing battle with the unrelenting inevitability of the natural world. Now take a look at the second shot of the city. We don't know this yet, but this is the Nona Tower containing the heart of the Cybele system. What do you notice about this? Think carefully. It's another shot of the ocean contrasted with the city. But this time we're not shown rusted old buildings. Instead, we're shown this massive dominating tower at the very edge of the water. But the important part isn't just this tower. Look at all the buildings around it. The buildings form this line, getting higher and higher as it approaches the water. It stands out almost like a challenge to nature rather than a mere battle with it. And throughout this video, I want you to think about this contradiction, this line between the artificial and natural, because it's exactly this line that Psych-Pass takes and uses to ask the question, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be an individual? Where exactly does this line lie? How about the MWSRB building? It stands out from the other buildings around it. It isn't just taller and more imposing. It's not just a different shape. It's not just the opposite color. It's also the only building with space around it. No matter how you look at this, this is a building with authority and majesty, but the black color makes it fearful, imposing, threatening, unnatural. Let's move on. How about this scene? What do you see? The decrepit apartments of a rusted slum, a barrel and a rusted car sitting in the middle of the street. Why are we being shown this? Really think about it. The Cybele system, society, decides everything. It decides everyone's job, everyone's future, and everyone's role in life. Everything is decided from birth. So, why then does inequality exist? And the thing is, the story doesn't actually give us an answer to that question. Instead, it uses this question to pose a different, more interesting question. Just before this, Akane has a conversation with Masaoka about Rousseau's dissertation on inequality. Don't read it, because despite what a bunch of wannabe intellectuals might tell you, it's kind of boring and a little bit shitty, particularly that part about the natural man became pretty cripplingly outdated about 100 years after it was written. But the basic point is that oppression and inequality are consequences of the ability to own things. And before man owned things, he was free, and he was his most natural self. And Rousseau's route to freedom from this inequality is a return to the natural self. In other words, anarchy, as described in Psych-Pass.
支配と権力の否定です。ただ、混乱と無秩序という意味ではない。
非人間的な支配システムの否定、より人間的なシステムの構築。
It's about breaking down the ruling class and replacing it with a more just system. It's about freedom from oppression, it's about fairness, and it's about equality. And this is exactly Makishima's goal. He's trying to tear apart the structure of society, the Cybele system, and bring it to its knees in order to restore this individuality, this truth of the human condition. So the question Masaoka asks Akane is, do you think the internet is the same? If owning things is meaningless on the internet, does inequality exist there? Does individuality exist on the internet? Because on the internet, property is meaningless and you can be anyone. And yet, people on the internet aren't equal. People don't revert to their most natural selves. Instead, they're even less natural. Because if you could be anyone, why would you be you? I wouldn't be you. You fucking smell. And if anyone could be anyone, why would you care who anyone else is? People don't care who the real person behind any of these characters is. Hell, in real life, Japanese fans even get upset if they learn anything about the real person.
Japanese people mostly don't want to see my 3D high polygon stuff. They could, I don't know, relate more to the anime.
Let's stop for a sec. Do you think it's a coincidence that in our discussion of anarchy here, that the person in question inside this apartment they break into is Spooky Boogie, the anarchist? I don't fucking think so. People on the internet are these ideals that are created by the masses, and the person in question, Spooky Boogie, is an anarchist, but not a real one. The anarchist thing is an act. It's simply entertainment. No one watching her actually gives a fuck about anarchy. They're happy plodding along in their sad little lives under the Cybele system. Anarchy is the furthest thing from their minds. Spooky Boogie is just entertainment. So let's back up a bit. Spooky Boogie is not a real person. Her ideas don't actually matter, and even if they did, she doesn't even believe in them and no one cares about them. So what exactly is it that the internet has manifest here? Remember what this was all about in the first place? Rousseau, equality and power, circle jerk intellectualism? What's being illustrated is the ruling class of the internet. The barriers of wealth have been taken down, and who have been installed? The leaders of the internet. The people have. The people created their own leaders based on whatever lie they tell themselves. When given anarchy, when finally given the opportunity to be equal, what does man come up with? More anarchy, fake anarchy. A new ruling class based on their own flawed ideals. Flawed ideals serving their worthless innate desires. So the big question Psych-Pass wants to ask you is, what is the true self? When are people being their most authentic self? And here's one answer: not on the fucking internet. What Makishima wants to uncover is people's raw, natural self, but when given this chance, they can only come up with lies. Makishima is wrong, but not just because he's a murderer. He's wrong because he's willing to murder for something that doesn't even exist. The dude who steals everyone's identity. He's Mr. Internet. As Makishima says, he doesn't have any identity, and that's why he could be anyone. He's able to perfect these ideals because he has none. He is the embodiment of the internet. Stripped away to its most natural self, man finds nothing but emptiness, and in its place creates a set of imaginary ideals. And that is literally what this guy does. More empty than anyone, he is able to create better ideals than anyone. This platonic ideal isn't real. People are not merely born into the world, they're shaped, molded by it. Throughout the show, the characters constantly wonder what it's like to make their own decisions, to live in a world where not everything is decided for you. Stripped away to only their most natural self, they find nothing because the self is more than that. Because it's the decisions you make that make you who you are. To explain this, let's take a quick detour and talk about some of the main inspirations behind Psych-Pass. First, Blade Runner. Actually, let's focus on the book because Psych-Pass cares about it more. Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is about the line between human and non-human. It's about this bounty hunter going around and killing androids, but before he does, he has to give them this test to tell whether or not they're human. It measures empathy, and because androids lack the same capacity for empathy as humans, they fail it and he kills them. But the irony at the core of the story is that, inferior or not, androids are sentient, self-aware beings with thoughts and feelings and hopes and dreams, and so to be able to coldly kill them and justify it by saying they lack empathy, who's really the one that lacks empathy? Is it the androids or the humans? This is what the main character struggles with as he gets closer and closer to these androids he's murdering as the story goes on. How could you murder a person and simply justify it by saying they aren't real? And that's the point of the second character, the brain-damaged man named Isidore. Isidore doesn't care about the difference between humans and androids. He's too stupid to know the difference, so all he can see is people. Real people with real hearts. He's too stupid to use his brain, so all he can use is his heart. And his heart says that these are people. Because they are. Psycho-Pass cares more about the book than the movie, so I won't get too much into it, but it's similar, but more about the androids rather than the human part of the equation. These androids, these people, are all basically indistinguishable from humans. They live, feel, and love just like us, so what does it really mean to be human in the first place? Where is this line between human and non-human? And Psycho-Pass asks us this question via Senguji, the man who's replaced everything but his brain with cyborg parts. Where exactly is the line between man and machine? The answer, according to Psycho-Pass, is irrelevant.
自分の生活をそこまで電子的な装置に委託しているのにサイボーグではないと言っても説得力はありませんよ。だから程度の問題なんです。
What it's more interested in is the question of what makes you an individual, and I for one agree that this is the more interesting question. So to answer this, let's take a look at Psycho-Pass's other main inspiration, George Orwell's 1984. Fucking fantastic book, by the way. Not that Philip K. Dick isn't a great author, but I thought his other books were better. Read Ubik, it's great. Sorry, 1984 is about a society under the oppressive control of this faceless government. And it's about how everything's sacred, everything that makes you human is forbidden under this authoritarian control. Everything, especially love, the most human emotion of them all. And it's about these two people, Winston and Julia, who fall in love and risk everything to be together. And they know what they're doing is dangerous. They know they're going to be killed, or worse, but they can't help themselves. Because if they aren't true to themselves, to what it means to be human, then they're no different than the mindless husks that society has created. And it's this exact same truth that Kogami pursues when he takes off in pursuit of Makishima. He knows he'll get arrested and probably executed. He knows it's wrong. He knows it isn't even justice, but it's his own personal truth, and it's something no one has the power to deny, not even himself.
これが過ちだと理解はしている。だが俺はきっと間違った道を進むことでしか今までの自分と折り合いがつけられない。
And this is what it means to be a person, an individual. This is what it means to have a mind that is truly your own. Makishima's idea of a person's true nature doesn't exist. It isn't some tangible idea of a person. It isn't something you can just dig up, just find sitting behind a rock somewhere. It's something you have to look for. It's the pursuit of this truth that makes you a person. It's the search for truth that is the real truth.
だって私あの人追いかけてる私が好きなんだもの。
It isn't love that made Winston and Julia special. It isn't killing Makishima that makes Kogami special. It's knowing what they had to sacrifice, knowing what they had to give up to do it that made their lives worth living. It's choice itself that makes life meaningful. And while he's not right, this is the truth that Makishima is trying to get at. The people in the world of Psycho-Pass don't make their own choices. Everything has been decided for them since birth. And not just their roles, but their entire lives as well. We get to see Akane getting ready for work with her personal assistant. And the assistant tells her specific calorie intake and the ideal breakfast, and then she asks it what she has to do today. The only choices she makes are what to wear and what kind of food to eat, but because literally all of it is synthesized by the computer, these choices don't matter. If your choice is literally anything, then your choice isn't important. It's meaningless. So people's careers aren't a choice. Their daily lives aren't a choice. Everything and anything they need is prescribed by the system, and they never have to deal with negative emotions. People have become so robotic and predictable that it's even able to give an accurate stress forecast for the day. That's fucking bananas. And you might be like, well, if everyone's just given the role that's best suited for them, isn't that the best? And you'd think so, but no, because part of what makes it good for you is that it's your choice. No one has one single job they should do. There's things you're more and less suited for, and taking away this choice takes away half of the meaning. Look around the MWPSB office. What do you see? You see games, you see dartboards. Kogari is hanging out playing video games, and Yayoi is studying music theory. Akane is the only one doing work while they sit there slacking off. She chose this life, and she does her best to live up to her choice, but the others simply exist in it. And we'll come back to this, but this ability to choose is what makes Akane so special. So now we need to talk about the things that make up these choices, and for that, we're gonna need to circle back to inequality. And that's because one of the main things psych-pass wants to say is that a big part of individuality is power and inequality. Remember Rousseau? That'll keep coming up. Take the episode with Yayoi. She fell in love with this beautiful, free-spirited musician, Rina, but her psych-pass got clouded and she ended up in an institution where she waited, pining for the day her psyche would heal, and she could get back up on that stage with that girl. And here we get exposed to another contradiction of the Cybele system. Everyone in this facility is kept here for rehabilitation, but they're all kept in isolated cells with no contact with other people. So, how could their mental health possibly improve? It wouldn't, because this facility isn't about people. It's not about health, it's about control. It's about power. Yayoi keeps wanting to play her guitar, to keep singing so she can be with that girl when she gets out. And she places an order for guitar strings 23 times, and every single time she gets denied. Why? Why can't she just have her music? There's only one thing in the world that matters to her, and she can't have it. If the system really wanted her to get better, it would have given her those guitar strings. Remember, unlike Rina, she was a licensed musician. The Cybele system told her to become a musician. It gave her purpose in life and now has stripped her of that purpose, leaving her to rot in a cell with no direction and no meaning. Here, isolated from the world, being denied over and over and over, she feels powerless. So when Kogami comes and offers her a job with the MWPSB, she refuses until he shows her the guitar strings, shows her the one thing she's been denied. Not music, no, power. He shows her that in here, she's powerless, but out there, she could be the one with power. And so Kogami takes this dynamic, this one of love and music and expression, and flips it on its head to be one about power, about control, and about authority. When Yayoi meets her lover, Rina, back in the outside world, Rina tells her that it's not about music, it's about power, it's about control. And Yayoi says it was for her. She just wanted to play music together. But did she? When Rina walks away, what does Yayoi do? She picks up that Dominator and tries to shoot her. But she doesn't just do that, and she doesn't just take the job with the police. She leaves those guitar strings behind, because pulling that trigger made her realize something that Rina was aware of this whole time, but that she'd been denying. That, in the end, it was about power all along. When she was in the institution, they drifted apart and their relationship and their lives stopped being about music and started being about power. Because it was always about power, and Yayoi trades those guitar strings for the cold, iron grip of a Dominator. Her stay in the institution wasn't about rehabilitation. It was about making her powerless. And by making her powerless, the Cybele system showed her how it feels to be powerless and how it feels to have power. It didn't make her become an enforcer. It didn't suggest she become an enforcer. It made her want to be an enforcer. So, where is Yayoi's true self really? Was it that naive young musician who just wanted to love? Is it this cold, intelligent enforcer? Or somewhere in between? We don't know. Both options were given to her by Cybele, and she chose each of them when Cybele needed her to. And this power is something so key to the MWPSB identity because it's something Psycho-Pass wants you to keep thinking about in every episode. The inspectors are in charge, but they're not the ones who do the dirty work. Instead, that's done by the enforcers because the act of apprehending criminals is dangerous to your Psycho-Pass. So the inspectors are the ones who are free to think, but the enforcers are the ones free to act. Meaning, is either of them really actually free? They're reliant on each other. In other words, they're reliant on the system that binds them together. Cybele. This is why Kogami needs to be strong, because he's merely a tool of the Cybele system, but if he actually has power of his own to wield, he can transcend that system.
相手を殺すのはドミネーターじゃなくこの俺だと。それを肝に銘じておくためにも、ここにちゃんと痛みを感じておかないとな。
Alright, so now that we're done talking about the roles created by the system, let's talk about the opposite side of the coin, the inverse roles created by Cybele. The Cybele system creates peace, order, and belonging with the system that creates disorder, pushing out those that don't belong. The system is designed to protect society from criminals, but as a side effect, actually creates them, meaning the system itself is a walking contradiction. The first scene of the show is this latent criminal about to sexually assault and murder this woman. But would he have without Cybele? Perhaps this man would have been a criminal, but would he have been a murderer outside of the Cybele system? What people need isn't happiness, what they need is meaning. And when their reason for existing is taken away from them, they self-destruct. This is the exact same pressures Cybele used to manipulate Yayoi into not just becoming an enforcer, but wanting to be one. This man, deemed a latent criminal by the Cybele system, realizes that society has no place for him and gives into all of his carnal desires all at once. But were these his real desires, or were they produced by rejection from society? When people no longer belong in a system, they don't just lose their reason to follow it, they gain a reason to hate it. Would he have done all of these things if Cybele hadn't given him a reason to? Probably not. And it's not just him. The woman he was attacking, her fear turns her into a latent criminal. And not just anyone, a target for lethal elimination, meaning someone with no chance for rehabilitation, with no place in society. And here's another fundamental contradiction here. Because of Akane's interference, her crime coefficient drops back under the amount for lethal elimination, meaning she clearly could be rehabilitated back into society, meaning the Cybele system is heavily flawed, or it's designed this way on purpose. Psycho-Pass wants you to think about these contradictions. What kind of system creates criminals and then designates them as having no place in society? How on earth could that possibly be a good system? Think about the dude from the factory. Isolated from the world and the internet and the rest of society, the factory workers find someone to bully. Eventually, one of them snaps and starts murdering people. You might think, as the story suggests, that this is the employer's fault for letting this happen, for being careless, for not coming up with a better solution, for not transferring him before this happened. But is it though? Think about why this factory exists. It's created by, and to create drones for, the Cybele system. And all employees, remember, were sent here by the Cybele system. Who can predict everyone's true nature? Meaning, Cybele would have predicted this exact outcome. In other words, Cybele deliberately turned this man into a criminal and then had him executed, all for the public good. Do you see what I'm getting at here? Then there's the daughter of the artist, Rikako. Shakespeare is a big part of her character. There's 3 plays that get brought up here. The first is Twelfth Night, the second is Titus Andronicus, and the third is Macbeth. Now, this is the only place I'm going to be able to put my English degree to good use, so just bear with me for a sec because I've been dying to talk about Shakespeare since I started this YouTube thing. I swear I'll keep it short. Twelfth Night is about shenanigans. I mean, okay, I can explain. So originally, Shakespeare was produced with an all-male cast. And this is a big part of the shenanigans, especially in 12th Night, which is about shenanigans. So there's this girl, Viola, right? Viola is a woman pretending to be a man, but played by a dude, remember? And she falls in love with one of the other characters, a straight man, but he doesn't notice because he thinks she's a dude, even though she's a girl, except she's played by a dude, right? And this dude is in love with this other woman, also played by a dude, right? But she falls in love with Viola's twin brother, who looks exactly like her, but is a dude, an actual dude, not a girl dressed up like a dude, but is actually a dude. So, dude pretending to be a girl, pretending to be a dude, falls in love with a dude who falls in love with a dude pretending to be a girl, who falls in love with a dude who looks like first girl pretending to be a dude who is actually a dude, and half the characters think she is him, and half of them think he is her, and are you lost yet? It's just this violently confusing and delightful case of mistaken identity, and it's about understanding others and understanding yourself. So, it's a play about identity. Who are you? Who is everyone else? Where is the self? And so is the next play, Macbeth. Macbeth is about this man who encounters 3 witches, and they tell him that he'll eventually become the king of Scotland. And they also predict his downfall. Consumed with greed, ambition, and hubris from this prophecy, Macbeth murders the king and takes the throne for himself, thinking that because he knows his future, he can avoid this downfall and remain king. But in order to stay king, he becomes this tyrannical monster, murdering anyone he becomes even slightly suspicious of. And it's this insane ambition itself that brings about his downfall as king and fulfills the witch's prophecy. So, the question in hand is, how much of this future did the witches predict? And how much did they create by giving him this prediction? Titus Andronicus is basically the exact opposite. Have you ever seen that South Park episode where Cartman gets revenge on a dude by killing his parents and then turning them into chili and then feeding it to him? That was based on this play. Only the South Park version is, how do I say this? Less offensive and horrifying? Titus Andronicus is about this dude, Titus, whose daughter gets sexually assaulted and has her tongue cut out. And so he finds the 2 dudes responsible and bakes them into a pie and feeds them to their mom. And then kills her too. And then also kills his daughter anyway. Yeah, no, I wasn't joking when I said it was worse. It's very violent. So this play is about violence. It's about human nature. It's about this line between civilization and barbarism. Okay, so why do I bring all of this up? Because Makishima is trying to bring out the natural self. These are all plays about nature and identity. 12th Night is just very explicitly about identity and the self. Titus Andronicus is about the natural self, and especially Macbeth, who draws this exact same line between the self and the true natural self. How much of Macbeth's ambition was already there? How much was created by the witches? How much would he have done if he had never encountered them in the first place? And it's the same with the people in helmets. How many of them would be a criminal? How many of them would really have the desire to rob and murder and riot without that helmet? Is the helmet simply a means to commit crimes, or an excuse? Or is the helmet itself the foundation of these desires? Makishima created disorder, not just by creating riots, but by creating doubt. The people who beat this man to death claiming they saw him wearing a helmet, was he? He sounded pretty reasonable when he told them to check his hue. The Cybele system uncovered the truth of the soul, and with just a few helmets, Makishima undid all of that in just a matter of days. Everyone starts questioning, who am I? Who is everyone else around me? Am I a helmet man? Could they be a helmet man? Who? Where? What is the self? Sure, there's riots, but the real disorder is in the self, in this doubt behind every single person. How many of them are tempted to put on a helmet, to be gay and do crimes? How many of them are frightened that they might be tempted? How many of them no longer need that temptation as they form gangs in opposition to the helmets? It's not the riots that are scary, it's doubt that is. Doubt in the self, doubt in the system, doubt in the very fabric of society and each of the individuals that make up that society.
何か疑わしいと思うようなことを抱え込んだら気をつけろ。そこから先には俺がハマったのと同じ落とし穴が待ち構えているかもしれん。
So think about all these people. The man in the beginning, his victim, the man in the factory, Yayoi, Rikako, the helmet orgy. How much of them is fulfilling their own will, and how much will is being given to them by Cybele, by Makishima, by society? Makishima is doing exactly the same thing as Cybele is doing. He's going around influencing people's innermost desires, and out the other end comes a bunch of insane murderers. Sure, Makishima gave the dude in the factory the means to kill, but every sign points to him going that direction anyway. It seems only a matter of time before he would have killed on his own. Cybele and Makishima go hand in hand here. They're doing exactly the same thing. And this is what makes Makishima so dangerous and so valuable to Cybele. Makishima is trying to bring out people's wills, and Cybele is also doing exactly that. Only it's acting on the will of society rather than the will of the individual. They are two sides of the same coin. How do we draw the line between someone's innate self and the one created by Cybele? How much is created by Cybele? How much is repressed by Cybele, if it even exists at all? Do people really even have needs and desires, or is it power that everyone wants? How much of you is really you, and how much is just a reflection of the society around you? Where is the self? The other flaw in Makishima's idea of identity is that people do not exist in a vacuum. People exist alongside other people. The idea that there can be a true or natural version of a person completely ignores the context of each of their lives. This is the point of Kogami and Makishima. They are opposites. Each of their existences gives the other meaning. They are two sides of the same coin, and they exist together. Here's something you'll have missed if you don't speak Japanese. Shogo means high noon. Shinya means midnight. They're opposites in both spirit and in name. Let me give you a quote from Heart of Darkness, which is about men going into the jungle and finding the darkness buried in the human soul. They had come together unavoidably, like two ships becalmed near each other, and lay rubbing sides at last. Sounds kind of like the beginning of the anime, right? Coincidence? Yeah, probably not. Not when Kogami is the one fucking reading it, it's not. So let's move on. The problem with the Cybele system is that it removes the entire point of existing. Makishima compares the Cybele system to the doctor from Gulliver's Travels. According to the doctor, the perfect government would be composed of 100 people of opposing opinions, with their brains sawed in half and exchanged with their opposite. And through this connection, they would be able to reach perfect compromise. And that is almost literally exactly what the Cybele system is. The flaw in this, the reason Makishima rejects this so hard, is that if everyone is everyone else, this completely erases the self. If everyone is just everyone else, then what possible reason would anyone even have for existing? If each of these politicians just is the other person, then there's no reason to compromise because they no longer need to. They no longer have that original opinion. And that's the problem with the society created by the Cybele system. People are detached from the self. They're detached from choices, from fear, from emotion, and from everything that makes you human. Let's go back to Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep for a quick sec. In Dick's story, the characters never need to feel. They have a device called an empathy box that they dial into that prescribes emotions. Calm, angry, sexual, apathetic, they're all just a dial away. And if emotions are reduced to nothing but a robotic reflex, what does it mean to feel anything? What does it even mean to have emotions? If the very concept of emotion is stripped away, it leaves nothing but apathy. And it's this very idea we see in Psych-Pass. Everyone is sheltered from any kind of negative emotion they might face, and as a result, they turn into robots incapable of feeling anything. In the world of Psych-Pass, the system determines everyone's aptitudes, and they have to live by it and be satisfied with a happiness forced upon them, unable to feel anything, and unable to have any real dreams and aspirations. Compare that to our world. Are we more defined by the society we live in than by our own innate selves? We're funneled through standardized schooling, take standardized tests, take standardized classes at university, and get a standardized seal of approval that says you are qualified to be this kind of person. Sure, the Cybele system is a little more extreme, but the point is, how much of us is really an individual, and how much is merely a product of the system we exist in? The Cybele system isn't really that different from us. It's just a material, physical system, whereas ours is an abstract one of rules and social pressures. For how many of us is our role in life really what we want to do, and not just a role we end up in due to the world around us? How many of us are free, really, truly free to be the person we want.
今の時代、誰もがシステムによって決められた適性に沿って自分が本当に望んだ夢を叶えることもできずに。
So Makishima sees this and is trying to bring back humanity, bring back the freedom of choice to the world, and uncover everyone's true self. But the flaw in Makishima's reasoning is that there is no true self. People are the product of their environment and the choices they make. A person's soul does not have a perfect platonic ideal. A soul is not a solid, unmalleable thing. A soul, a person's desires and wants and hopes and dreams, is connected to the very society they exist in. A person's true self isn't nature. It isn't the Cybele system. It's not the influence of others. It's all of these things together. Society itself isn't unlike the doctor's brains. No man is an island. That's the point of the helmets. These people get to ignore the rules of society and turn against it and their fellow man in horribly violent ways. But if they didn't exist in this society, the desire to turn against it wouldn't exist in the first place. That desire for freedom is a manifestation of society, and Makishima takes it and perverts it with the helmets. No part of this is natural. Makishima tries to bring out everyone's true nature, but how is it that everyone he touches is a murderer? Is this capacity to murder really there in the first place, or did he create it? If you were to find someone who is the embodiment of truth, of their natural self, and found a perfect, upstanding citizen, would they be just as valuable to him? In the end, Makishima comes face to face with Akane, the face of justice, and realizes its truth. When he picks up Kogari's gun and tries to shoot Akane and it comes out blank, he realizes that she was willing to cast away her life for justice, to protect what she believes in. She used her last bullet trying to stop him and almost died for it, and he doesn't kill her because he realizes that she is exactly the kind of person he so admires. And if such a person is trying to stop him, perhaps he was never right in the first place. The point of Akane's character is that she is the truest person in the story.
お嬢ちゃんは自分の犯罪係数を全く恐れていないってことさ。あの子はなんていうか物事を良しとしている。それでいて危ない橋を渡るのも厭わないんだから、ただ流れに身を任せているわけでもない。
Everyone else was prescribed a role. Even Makishima was inversely given a role by nature of not being given one. But Akane wasn't. She was able to choose anything she wanted, and so her choice is meaningful specifically because it was her choice. Makishima realizes this when he spares her life, and Cybele realizes this too. While Makishima gains power by existing outside the system, and Kogami does by existing under it, Akane takes power by being a part of it. Every one of these characters is special because they each have the power to choose, but Akane is the most special because she's able to make this choice without discarding the world and society around her. Here's something else you probably missed if you don't speak Japanese. Akane's last name, Tsunemori, is Tsune, meaning ordinary, as in unchanging, and Mori, which means protect. Her name literally means protecting the status quo. She doesn't care about this difference in the self. She cares about justice. She cares about what's right. And she's someone who is willing to follow the rules to the letter in pursuit of justice, because it's justice that everything is built on. Makishima isn't wrong. You can't be yourself without the freedom to choose, but you also can't be yourself without other people. Akane is the most free because she's the only one that understands the context of her freedom. The natural self isn't real. It isn't something you can separate from society. It's society itself that makes us who we are, and it's having freedom to choose within the boundaries of society that makes us truly individuals. That's why Kogami's choice matters, because he made a choice against this boundary. That's the point of the helmets. Their desires only exist because of society. And same with Yayoi and Rikako and all of the other characters. Their wills, their desire to exist, to love and choose and to be free, can only exist within the boundaries of society, within the boundaries of the Cybele system, and it's Akane that understands this more than anyone. It's not perfect, No, there's still power and inequality, and she knows there's a better way out there. But she also knows that we can only move forward by building on the past, just as the Cybele system did before it. It isn't fair or just, but it is necessary, because tearing apart society means tearing apart the individual. You can't have one without the other. The more our society evolves, the more connected it gets. I feel like this message is more and more relevant every year. Psych-Pass has a lot to say about a lot of things, yes, about the internet and about the future, sure, but the message at its core is, what does it mean to be a person? What does it mean to have your own thoughts and feelings and hopes and dreams and beliefs and truths? Not what does it mean to be human, but what does it mean to be you? That is what Psych-Pass is about, and the answer it wants you to hear is we live in a society